welcome to PostScript. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for coming to be with me here in Berkeley Springs in eastern Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Not far from Pennsylvania. We're just 6 miles away from Pennsylvania and 2 mile, or well, a little less than that to Maryland. We're in this eastern panhandle over by Washington and Baltimore. So I want to talk to you today about a question that I get asked fairly regularly, and that is my son or daughter is in high school and they're trying to consider what they should do in the future and what they should study, and what do you suggest is a good area to go into to study if they're going to go off to college or something. Well, I don't know exactly what I'd suggest in that regard, but let me talk to you about a couple of other things. First of all, what's going to be really important going forward into this time of uncertainty and change and chaos and whatever is the ability to think logically. In a sense, it's how do you think well? Our education system is not designed to teach you how to think. It's to teach you how to remember what you're being told so that you can get a good test. Grade on a test, then you can get yourself graduated, and so that you can kind of regurgitate back to whoever in whatever situation you're employed those kinds of things that you've been taught. Very few there are a few exceptions of Waldorf schools and some other kind of things where the emphasis is more about the underlying kind of way in which you think about things and how you generate a level of independence, this sovereignty we've talked about, this level of independence and sovereignty, because you are equipped to be able to assess more broadly things that are going on and not be just dependent upon what somebody tells you. And you are able to analyze what somebody tells you in a very logical kind of way and figure out whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense, whether they're trying to kind of mess with you or not. And you really need that kind of framework. That is really, really important in this space going ahead, because we're going into uncertain times. This is that kind of like being an explorer, right? Or a pioneer. You're going into a place and you better know and be open to about a whole lot of different kind of things and be able to make your own decisions, because there isn't going to be anybody else that's going to be making these decisions for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. Being a pioneer is very good kind of metaphor here, because you're in the space where very few people have been there before, and you're on your own, and you've got all of the wild animals and whatever else that are all out there, and you got a limited amount of food and so on. So you've got to really be innovative, and you got to think, and you got to make decisions in the right kind of way. Now, the other piece of this thing as advice to a young person, or anybody for that matter, that's going into this space, is that you got to be broad in terms of your knowledge or your access, at least. It really helps to, first of all, I think it's really important to have some kind of a scientific kind of basis. I mean, I'm an engineer, but the fact of the matter is we live in a world that is highly technical and increasingly technical. And if you don't understand a little bit about some of that kind of stuff, you don't understand what's going on. You don't even understand the lingo. You don't understand the vocabulary. Somebody talks about a global, some kind of a mass, a coronal mass ejection or something. If you don't know a little bit about that area, you really don't know what's happening and what's going on. And the kind of events that are coming downstream, almost by definition, if you work your way up an exponential curve like that, what you get is bigger and bigger and bigger events that populate that that process. And underneath it are breakthroughs on top of breakthroughs on top of breakthroughs, all of which throw the historical and the legacy kind of systems and the methodologies and the approaches and the perspective just out the window, because things are moving faster and faster in bigger and bigger kind of ways. And so uh, it's extremely important to have something other than a very narrow kind of focus. We've talked about that in the past, about being a specialist, but you need this broader kind of notion. What you also have to do is realize that at a certain level, you don't know anything. None of us know anything for sure. What we do is that we have these things that we've been told. We see consistency in the world. We see pattern recognition, and it's happened like this before, so it's likely to happen in the future. But and we build our reality all around these combinations of these kinds of things. But there's I like to think that I'm sitting here in West Virginia, sitting here talking to you through this camera, and that's real, and I know that to be true, and that there's a Toyota Highlander sitting out the window outside, and I know that. But once you get outside of your local view, everything else is mediated by something else, whether it's television or radio, or that somebody else says or something, and that says nothing to the underlying notion that everything that we know is only the best thinking that there is right now. The things we think we know. I mean, that's really in sciences. My scientist friends don't like it when I say it, but it's almost like everything in science is wrong. All you've got to do is wait a while, and they'll figure out something else, and they'll determine that what they thought last time is not really right, and what they now think, they've got new models about how things work, and that's the nature of science and this whole learning and knowledge business, and there's a tentativeness that needs to be a part of how you approach all of this, because if you think you know something, if you've been told something, if your priest or pastor or rabbi or whatever it is has told you this is the way the world works, and you are absolutely convinced that that's the way it is, then you're locked into this kind of groove, and you're not going to be able to change, to be able to make the movements that need to be done in order to be able to adapt to this new kind of world. So there is this kind of notion of this broader kind of understanding, and I've talked about the systems nature of things, and the expanded network of people that you bring around you that start to think about the same thing, and that you have new kind of sources that come from somewhere else, that give you an alternative to the mainline media and the companies and the government, who are all kind of trying to control you. But it's all about this of building a sense of sovereignty and independence, and being able, and you can only do that in a time of high rates of change and uncertainty, is to broaden your awareness. Remember, early on in one of these sessions, I talked about enlightenment, and all these things are all about expanding awareness. All of it, whether it's awakening, use the whatever term that you want to use, but they're all about an expansion of awareness and seeing yourself in the world in quite a different kind of way. And so the thing that'll best serve a young person going forward, or anybody for that matter, is this openness to lots of different sources, and being able to see broadly, and have the ability, the intrinsic, the core capability to be able to understand and make these decisions on oneself and not be dependent upon the institutions and the organizations that are trying to drive you and get you to to behave in a certain way so that they can make money off of you or whatever it is that they're trying to do. So thanks for being around. Check in down below if you're new to this, and leave your name and your email address, and we'll send you announcements about the next time. We have no way of sending you announcements or alerts about the next one of these PostScript episodes or segments if we can't contact you. We won't give your we won't sell your email or anything to anybody else. But if you check in, as I said, let us keep in touch this way, and then come back the next time because we'll have some more interesting things to talk about.